Yeah, I started off with the long-term rentals, doing multifamily, burring, the joint venturing, creative financing, and then shortly after got into short-term rentals. And now it's a blend of both. And I think actually to your point, like the long-terms are the pillars. Like those are very, very secure in all types of economies, up, down, sideways, whatever. Where short-term rentals really do well in like a booming economy. And the cash flow can help to supplement the portfolio as a whole. So yeah, I do a blend of both. It's like a hybrid system, a bunch of long terms and short terms now.
Okay.
And actually a couple medium terms too.
Riley, how you doing, brother?
Excellent.
Good, man. We're live.
Beautiful. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you as well too. Thanks again for coming out to our last mastermind event. You rocked it.
I had a great time. Like what an awesome group that you have there at Smart Home Choice. Yeah. Yeah. And the panel was excellent because we had short term, we had medium term, long term, and everything in the middle. So
yeah, well, thanks for coming out. And you know what? I didn't realize this, and I feel embarrassed now saying this, but you were there when Corey came out to my last mastermind event. This is, I think, before COVID, before we shut down. I think Dave DeBow was there as well too, and I think you were his camera guy.
I was the videographer. Yeah, that was 5 years ago, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really surreal because it came full circle. Last time I was there, I was the videographer and helping out Corey, who was my mentor at the time, and then I was actually able to speak this year. So that was
because you came up to me afterwards and it was like, "Hey, do you remember that?" I was like, "No." I was like, "Oh shit!" But then as you said it, I'm like, "Yes, okay." That's where I kind of like. Obviously, I went to the Corey McKinnon event to do a talk there, and I saw you there, and I was like, "Damn, you look familiar." But I didn't actually put it all together. So awesome.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me again. It was a blast. And you have awesome people in the group. Like they're all up to some amazing things. And so,
thank you. You know what? I enjoy doing it. Actually, I'll be truthful with you. When we do it, there are times where I'm like, oh my God, we got to do this again. And then you got to find the speaker, and then you got to get the room. And are we going to have people coming out? Oh my God, the sales are slow. And you're doing all this stuff. And then when it's all done, when the day comes and you do it and you're having fun there and just people showed up. And at the end, every time I look at my wife, I'm like, man, thank God we did this again. Like I really enjoy doing it, getting people together in the room, learning, and then seeing people take the information that they're learning and then doing something with it. Now, not everybody does, but when I see people take that and run with it, it's like it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I do quite a bit of that with like the students that we work with, just like being able to help them and live vicariously through them.
Yeah.
But during COVID, especially, it's been more difficult. I think a lot of groups that used to meet in person, like real estate investor groups, are now going virtual. Yeah. But it's been great to see that you guys have kept it alive and kept it going in person.
Yeah, thank you.
That's where the magic happens.
It is. But anyways, listen. Not about me. Today is about you. You know, what got you into real estate investing? Let's talk a little about your story and why real estate, because obviously something you saw or something kind of sparked you to say, this is the path that I need to take.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things looking back. It's always interesting to see the path because you don't really recognize what's going to happen looking ahead all the time. But looking back, it was a combination of things. Like the first was, I was super young. I was like 18, 19. I was very, just like, I want to use the word entrepreneurial, even though it's overused, but I think deep down, like I ran strawberry stands as a child, would go pick strawberries and then sell them on the side of the road. And I would, at 18, I was knocking on houses, selling my home maintenance work that we did to try to pay off tuition. And
were your parents entrepreneurs or
my dad ran my dad actually ran he was self-employed and ran his own home or water conditioning business.
Okay.
So we were in rural Nova Scotia, so there isn't municipal water or anything, so there's water conditioners in the basement. So he did that. So I watched him as I was growing up, but didn't really recognize that anything was different. I just thought that was normal, where he's on the phone all day and talking to people and organizing work. But yeah, it definitely did carry over when I was, my late teens, early 20s. And when I was at university, I started taking classes about environmental studies. I got really, really passionate about the environment and like, what can we do to like save the planet in a way? I was one of those.
Yeah.
And really got into renewable energy and wanted to run a renewable energy business. Looked at geothermal in Ontario and looked to actually buy a hydraulic drill to run this business. Now, it's really expensive. So I had to go to the bank. The banks denied me this loan that I was looking for. It was only, at 18, 19, it was like $1 million. It was a pretty expensive drill.
Right.
And they laughed me out of the bank. I left discouraged because I couldn't get financing. They asked me about what assets do I own? I didn't have any assets. So I left the bank researching assets. No one in my family had ever owned investment properties. They owned primary residences, but never like an investment property itself. And so it really set me on this unique path that I'd never explored, never even heard of at an early age, and then connected with other investors, people that were in the space, found a great mentor, and and multiple mentors after that. And it's been quite the journey. But I think, again, the first exposure was going into the bank, trying to get this loan, and then they denied me because I didn't have any assets. So I recognized that a lot of like stocks and bonds and things of that nature just weren't assets. Right. And that I needed like a tangible asset, something I could go and touch.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of that wake up call. Like, okay, let me go get some real assets now.
That's it. And I knew I wanted to run businesses for the rest of my life. I knew that that's the space I wanted to play in for my career. And I the more research I did, the more it was obvious that a lot of the most successful business owners in the world had an asset class as like a nice foundational base. So they had income properties as like mini businesses, and they used that as kind of like their safety net. Right. It's cash flow coming in, it's secure, it's more reliable. And so if their other active income business doesn't do that well, then the cash flow from their rental properties kind of pick up the slack and make up for it.
You know what? You're touching on a very good point there. The foundation of having real estate, having some cash flow come in, but then also the active side as well too. And I think with what happened last year, a lot of people saw real estate as a great way, a great vehicle to now quit their full-time jobs, and they're going to live off the cash flow of real estate, not realizing that they also need some form of an active income. Like you need both. Look, I'm not saying you can't live off the cash flow, but it's difficult. It's not easy. And so you need that active income. And so even for me and my business as well too, like I've had to kind of pivot and say, okay, I got to move into this realm, focus on this active income, or work harder to create more systems and processes in this business. Okay, now I can maybe acquire more properties. Okay, maybe I need to get rid of this property over here because it's not performing well. Like it's like this, all these moving pieces that you've got to put together.
Yeah, it really is. When you look at it as like an organism or some type of machine, I really think that the money is like the blood of the organism when you look at a big business and you're growing an empire. And then, again, like maybe you need to be able to move that around, like you're saying, like sell off the lemons, sell off the donkeys in the portfolio, reallocate the funds there, and then, buy better businesses. But the money is nice and all, like it's good to have business profit and it's required. And it is tough when the economy shifts to keep that moving, So we've set up like extra active income businesses to supplement some businesses that just aren't doing that well, but we know will work better in the thriving economy. And so it's just a matter of the timing, right? Based on where the economy's at too.
I want to dive into that a little bit deeper later on, but I do want to talk about short-term rentals because I think that's kind of is that your bread and butter? That's what you focus on now. I don't think you started off with short-term.
Yeah, I started off with the long-term rentals, doing multifamily, BRRRR, the joint venturing, creative financing, and then shortly after got into short-term rentals. When? And now it's a blend of both. And I think actually to your point, like the long-terms are the pillars. Like those are very, very secure in all types of economies, up, down, sideways, whatever. Where short-term rentals really do well in like a booming economy. And the cash flow can help to supplement the portfolio as a whole. So yeah, I do a blend of both. It's like a hybrid system, a bunch of long terms and short terms now.
Okay.
And actually a couple medium terms too.
So when did you get into the short term? When did you say, okay, this is something that I need to explore? And then let's kind of maybe dive into the setup of it, how it all works. And I think also too, some of the, we'll say, implications that have surfaced recently.
Yeah, I would say I got into it just pre-COVID and recognized that I actually connected with an old friend of mine, James Fedek. Okay. And he had just, I think, just published the book Airbnb for Dummies, so one of the For Dummies books. And so really world-renowned in the Airbnb space. We reconnected because he had been running like a co-hosting business in the short-term rental space. And then I was like the real estate investor, so I had a bunch of long-term rentals. And so it was just a matter of time before we got in each other's ears and we were like, oh, like let's just combine skill sets here. And so we went out and we bought quite a few short-term rentals immediately after, and they all did really, really well.
How did you buy them? Somebody's listening and they're like, okay, what do you mean you scaled and you bought a whole bunch? Like, you make it sound like you just went out to the grocery store and just bought like a bag of lemons. Right? It's not that
Fair
simple.
Joint venture partners, like it was a matter of finding someone that had the money in the mortgage.
Yeah.
And then we came in with the skill set. Short-term rentals can be a very highly active business if you allow it to. And because we had good systems and a really great team in place, we were able to come in and make it somewhat still passive for us, but added just a ton of value to the partnership. So we found some people with money in a mortgage and we co-owned the properties 50-50. And so we grew it that way. And then we bought some with our own money too. And I'd actually ended up doing like a multifamily short-term rental. So it was really, really unique. And so that's actually led to us wanting to do even something bigger now, doing like a boutique hotel to scale this to the next level. That's how we did it, was financing originally with joint ventures.
Yep.
And then our own money after.
And then when you were doing those joint ventures, were they in the beginning, were they putting in all the money? Were they put in 75%? You put in 25%? How were you kind of structuring that for somebody that's listening?
Yeah, well, we had such a skill set that I knew that the value that we were adding, we could even take a higher percentage than they were, because the ROI was just tremendous on these properties that we were finding. And like the one, for example, we were able to negotiate it down $100,000. And so it was just a ton of equity already built into some of these properties. We did take a 50-50 split. So we took 50% equity and 50% cash flow. Mm-hmm. And then obviously they took the other 50%. And yeah, like all the properties have performed really well. They're happy with the ROIs, and we'll probably just continue doing it that way.
Right.
We might actually evolve now into the GPLP structure, a bit more complicated of a structure for financing. Okay. But to do larger commercial projects, that's what we're looking to do.
So are most of these properties now, because they're joint ventures, are usually in their names, or are some of them in corporations with some of your joint venture partners?
Yeah, they're in their personal names. Okay. Yeah, they're all in their personal names, and then they're the one on title and on the mortgage. Yeah. And then we have the joint venture agreement. That just again will allow us to be the active partner.
Okay, so you get into the short-term rental space. Where do you start? What type of properties are you focusing on first? And then how did you evolve it into what? Because then I think you also went into cottage country as well.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we actually started in cottage country, and
where? Kawarthas?
So it was in the Kawartha Lakes. Yeah, we started in the Kawartha Lakes.
My place. I love the Kawarthas.
Yeah, it's excellent up there. Looking at the entry point, we wanted to find high value assets. And so the big distinction was like a vanity market versus a value market. We saw Muskoka as like more of a vanity market. Mm-hmm. It's like the Louis Vuitton of Ontario. Like, people go up there and you buy the brand. But we really wanted to buy more so like a valued asset. And so we saw the Kawartha Lakes as that opportunity. And then we also looked at, okay, like what we had the AirDNA data. So AirDNA is essentially like a sister company to VRBO and Airbnb. They kind of have all this aggregated information, all this data in super fancy spreadsheets. And so we looked at that data set and we recognized that there were huge opportunities in lake access properties that weren't lakefront. Lakefront properties would go for 50% more, potentially even more than that compared to lake access. And so we stayed away from the lakefront properties. We realized that there wasn't that much more revenue that we could generate for our Airbnb if we did lakefront versus lake access.
That's interesting.
So there was an arbitrage opportunity there to go in and actually find these lake access properties. So that's what we bought. The first 3 were all lake access, not lakefront, but you could walk to the lake within 5 minutes.
And those did well.
Those did really well. Yeah, a lot of them did 100,000 or more just in their first year, and cash flowed 3,000 to 4,000 a month.
And so when people came to those properties, well, they obviously knew that, hey, it was this lake access, and they were fine with it. They're like, okay, yeah, as long as we can walk to the lake, we're fine. We get this beautiful cottage. You picked it up for whatever, maybe half the price. I don't know if it was half or maybe a couple $100,000 less in waterfront.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, it was a couple $100,000 less, and the average night rate dropped like a fraction. Like we could get properties for 25 to 50% less than lakefront, but the average night rate was only dropping like maybe 10 or 15%.
That's crazy.
So that was the arbitrage opportunity.
Right. And you use AirDNA. AirDNA or
AirDNA is the company that we use. There's a few others, but that's the
go-to one.
That's the go-to one that we'll use. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then what were some of the mistakes that you made in the beginning? Or you just knocked it right out of the park?
Yeah, no, we made a ton of mistakes. So many mistakes. Yeah. I would say the one thing that we did was, a bunch of like little technicalities that we kind of like screwed up on. The one was we had this device called Noise Aware. It's essentially just like this noise monitoring software, or kind of like an outlet, or thing that you plug into an outlet, and it regulates the decibels of noise in your Airbnb. So we were just trying to moderate like the noise levels, and so if noise reaches a certain amount, whatever you set it at, it will trigger you or kind of notify you there in your phone. So we had
notifying you, like
us or the property manager, whoever it might be that's kind of running the show there. And so, yeah, we set these up, and one guest actually complained that the Noise Aware was a violation of like something, like spying on us. It wasn't like basically tracking anything that they were saying. It was just, it's just a noise monitoring.
Right, like decibels.
Decibels, exactly. Yeah. And so Airbnb actually shut us down. This was the first time ever. It shut us down for one of the properties for, I think it was a week or two. In peak season. So that was a huge hiccup. Just something super small like that, but they did shut us down.
Okay, so it is a violation then.
Well, you have to, all they wanted us to do is just add in a one-liner, little clause there into the description of the listing on Airbnb to just say, hey, we do have like surveillance at the property for noise monitoring. So we did that, and then we were all fine to relaunch.
So you did that just for it not to be like if they're making too much noise, maybe neighbors close by. Is that what it was?
It was completely for the neighbors. Okay. Because the one cottage that we had, the neighbors were quite close, and so we just wanted to make sure that they were all good. We have an awesome relationship with the majority of our neighbors, which is kind of unheard of in the space. Like usually people don't do these sorts of things to like monitor and make sure that the neighbors are happy. But you know, we introduced ourselves to them at the beginning. We give them like Christmas gifts. We do whatever we can to kind of keep that awesome rapport and relationship. And this was one of the ways that we were going to be able to do that. And definitely was one mistake, but we just didn't know. Like you don't know what you don't know when you get into the space. And so that was the one. And then the other property that we bought, the water system was really, really, really bad. It was a drilled well, but we didn't know about I forget the exact term for it, but just like the water flow in the water table was very low in the summertime. So we run out of water from July until September. So now we have to have this water truck to come in and fill up the well. So for the first, and we launched, I think it was a month or two before.
Do you know if it was a drilled well or a dug well? It's probably a dug well.
It was actually a drilled well.
It was
a drilled well. It was older, but we can do this thing called a fracking system, which kind of opens up the pores of the well and apparently will increase the water flow. But anyway, we had a bunch of bad reviews because there was just no water. We had to, we had to kind of pivot away from that, but we figured it out after. But the bad reviews kept us down. So we actually had to relaunch that property on Airbnb because the reviews were bad. And now we have like 5-star reviews on the property, and it's just blown up. Now we're Superhost on it. It would have taken us years though to regain good reviews and get Superhost.
How do you relaunch?
We just deleted the old listing and then just created a new listing.
Oh, that's all you have to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Airbnb can kind of give you a hard time once in a while if like the address is the same, or if they recognize that this is a strategy of yours, but you know, it was fine when we did it. So
and I mean, look, you legitimately resolved the issue, right? And so like, okay, look, this issue is now resolved. All these bad reviews are no longer valid. And so we're relaunching. Here's our new site. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it worked really, really well. It was the first time that we had ever done it. It was a little nerve wracking because if Airbnb would have flagged us, we were fearful that we just couldn't relaunch, or we had to keep the old listing. Yeah. But that worked out well for that one.
Got it. Yeah. So what do you need to do to launch a good short-term rental out in cottage country? Because I know that's been something that's been pretty popular over the last 2 years, we'll say. Now, I think there's a bit of a downward trend in cottage country just because of the fact now that employers are like, hey, employees, you can't live out here for the rest of your life. We need you back in the office, right? And I think also too, there may have been, and you know, you jump in here because you're probably more aware of what's happening out there, where now people thought that it was going to be easy to rent out some of these cottages, bought them for very, very high. Interest rates went up, and now they're stuck with these properties that just, the numbers aren't making sense. So what are you seeing, number one? And then number two, how do you set it up properly?
For sure. Yeah, the one pivot that we've made recently is going after more urban-centered properties where we can still operate as a short-term rental, but then we can also pivot into a medium or a long-term rental. So the most important thing right now is your market analysis and understanding that data at a macro level. So again, kind of a shout out here to AirDNA. We'll actually have the worldwide data set for the market views. Usually when you go on Airbnb or AirDNA, it's just like the one data set for like one specific market. But we actually have like the best places to invest report, which is like the enterprise level subscription with AirDNA. So it shows us the best places to invest in Airbnb here in Canada. And so that's like a 5-figure investment that we've put into that, but it's totally worth it when you're looking at that bird's eye view of where to invest. And so we'll look at that data set. That's like the first thing is your market analysis.
So that investment is a 5-figure investment yearly or just a one-time shot?
One time, yeah.
Okay, and then now they give you this report, what, monthly, yearly?
Quarterly. So it's a quarterly best places to invest. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll start there. And so one market that we've been looking at is Peterborough, actually, here in Ontario, and looking at getting in there because, you know, we could do a short-term, a medium, or a long-term rental, and it could work well for each. And doing like a multi-family. So that way we have multiple pillars in the property. So we could have like duplex, triplex, fourplex, that sort of thing. And so we'll look at again that multifamily or the bird's eye view level, the data set there that we'll have, and then we'll actually zoom in and we'll look at obviously the market analysis of the property. So we're looking at multiple properties. After we look at a bunch of different properties, we'll kind of understand, okay, like this is the hot pocket. This is based on AirDNA. This is the hot spot in that city of where we want to go. So we're kind of zooming in, and then we'll find the properties that just look a bit more unique. We don't go after like just a regular cookie cutter home. So we stay away from suburbia. We're looking at really, really unique properties. So a lot of ours, especially up in the cottage country, they're pretty unique. Like they look like log cabins or they're right on the water, right on like a pond or something. And so guests are really looking for unique experiences. And that's the big kicker that's going to have you compete and likely win over a lot of the competitors. Pre-COVID and even during COVID, a lot of people could just do it. Like anyone could list, you could list a freaking sandwich of as the main photo and list it and do really, really well on Airbnb. And now that's just not the case. The market is quite competitive. I wouldn't say overly saturated. Like if you know where to look, some markets are saturated, so you have to stay away from them. And ultimately like be able to compete and be in the 90th percentile. So we really look to be in the 90th percentile. A couple things we do there is first, making sure that we're able to, again, find that unique property and have awesome amenities. So we actually will figure out, in order to get those unique amenities, like what's the guest avatar? If we're in a cottage area, it's going to probably be a hot tub, a sauna. You know, maybe we even have a room for a volleyball net. You know, that guest avatar up there is going to be maybe more of a family or a group of friends. And so we want to have activities for, you know, potentially children, some board games, things of that nature, home movie theaters in the basement. If it's in more of an urban center and we're maybe renting to guests that are C-level executives, we're going to have an office space. We're going to have like a desktop. We're going to have a nice desk, good chair. They can work there, really high-end internet, and on all of those other things that maybe that C-level executive would need. So the guest avatar, making sure then you have amenities that actually complement and help out that guest avatar. And from there, it's just a bunch of other things like really awesome photos, making sure that you have props in those photos.
Props? What do you mean props?
Yeah, like in the photos, just actually having them see themselves living in that space when they come. And what that could look like is in the movie theater in the basement, having a bowl of popcorn. And maybe some gummies there, some sparkling water, some Perrier. Right. And they can actually see themselves there enjoying the space. So it isn't like my long-term rentals when I'm taking photos. It's just very bland. I usually don't furnish them for photos or anything. And it's, you know, white walls or gray floor, white cabinets. And, you know, like they don't usually see themselves there. Sometimes we'll take photos of the long-term rentals with like the old guests' furnishings or whatever. But a lot of the time it's just not exciting. Whereas the short-term rentals, you really want it to be exciting. You really want it to provoke emotion when they're looking through the photos. And that's going to have them click on yours and actually rent yours versus the others that are available.
Yeah. Those are some really good strategies and really good tips, you know? So yeah, you take a picture of the kitchen. Don't just do the kitchen. Do a picture of like I don't know, whatever, a bottle of wine with a wine opener there beside it and like, you know, 4 glasses, right? So it's like, okay, I'm coming up here to have some drinks with my friends or the girls or whatever, right?
That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really good strategies. How hard and how long does it typically take to set up a short-term rental? So you buy the property, you're looking for all these different amenities and unique features in the property, but humans are needy. Right, man. They need towels, toilet paper, forks, knives, spoons. Are you also looking to buy all of that when you're buying these properties, or a lot of times are you having to go out and do all that yourself?
Yeah, like once you do it once and you do it really well, you can kind of roll it out like a production line. So the first one was quite a bit longer. It took us 8 months start to finish.
Oh, really?
It was also a burr, so we did 100% of a burr on it. So we had to. It was almost a full gut. Like we added in bedrooms and stuff of that nature. Did a bunch of the interior designing. Had to create the furnishing list, hundreds and hundreds of things for furnishing, and then I definitely start to finish from the time that we started looking until the time that it was up and we actually had our first guest. It was about 8 months.
Okay.
But then since then we've been able to get that much better at it, and it's usually 3 to 4 months start to finish, and it's because we already have the Google sheet with all the line items of all the amenities that we need or all the furnishings, and we can duplicate a lot of them. We don't have to do interior designing over. A lot of them are just rolled out like a production line again, so we'll do the same type of design. We might switch up a few things, but a lot of them will stay the same. And when we know which softwares to use, we know how those softwares integrate, and we also have the teams. A lot of the teams that we'll have are able to service all the properties. So we usually buy within an hour radius of all the other properties. That way the same cleaning team, the same maintenance team can go and service all of them. So we don't have that extra time to actually go and source those contacts. Yep. Along with even guest communication. We have a guest communication person and a portfolio manager who are involved to oversee the day-to-day operations at the more macro view. So once we have the systems in place and the team in place, it just goes so much quicker, right? And so that's why we started helping other people, because they could take 6 to 8 months to do their first, and it's a lot of work. Or they can condense that you kind of run with in a way, or learning curve.
Right. Yeah. So who's furnishing it though? Like, do you have runners? Do you have people that are, to get all these? Cause it's a lot. Like, and I mean, I don't even know what the norm is. Is it 10,000? Is it 20,000 to furnish these? I mean, I know every property's gonna be different, but let's say now it's vacant. You got nothing in there. Typically, what can you expect?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of furnishing it, like we did the first one ourselves, and man, oh man, it was a pain in the butt. It was a full week. It was James and I. We were up at the cottage, and we just spent the entire week. It was 12 plus hours a day, and by the end of the week, our hands were all cracked because we're like screwing in all of the little nuts and bolts, and we had some drills there too.
But it was all the furniture together.
So long, and it was a 6-bed, 2-bath, and it was just took way too long. And so, looking at the next one, we learned from that mistake. And we realized that we could hire someone for $25 to $35 an hour to actually go. And so we hired a few furnishing people, and they went in within a few days. They had it all done, and it was worth the while. We just made sure that the next property had the kind of, in a way, profit margins to be able to afford that. The one cool hack actually with the one property I bought in Nova Scotia was being able to deliver the furnishings that we're buying from IKEA and Amazon and all these other places like StructTube and Wayfair, delivering it to a storage locker that actually is a front desk concierge that would accept packages and then put those packages that are delivered to the storage unit into my storage unit or whatever I'd rented there. So that way they're not going to the property, because if they go to your property, like if it's cottage country or in a urban center, people can steal them. And so, and it's also just getting in the way if you don't have like a good place to store them in a garage or something, as people are renovating or painting or whatever it looks like. And so we actually put it into a storage unit and then hired someone that had a U-Haul, to go, and they essentially rented a U-Haul, picked up all the furnishings, took it to the property, and then the furnishing team came in and started assembling everything. And so it was completely hands off. And that's the way that we'll do it moving forward as well.
Right. Okay. So you buy everything, put it into a storage, maybe you got to do some cleanup in there. And then once you're ready, somebody comes, grabs all that stuff, drops it off, assembles it. And then you have an assembly team.
And we have an assembly team, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a whole system in place.
At the beginning, we did Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace. We tried to source everything for a 6-bed.
Yeah.
The goal was to do 8,000. I think we just hit 9,000 for furnishing the entire place, which was really, really good. And it took way too long. It was just a pain in the butt to organize the pickups and the deliveries and everything. And some of the stuff ended up kind of being broken, we recognized after. So we just, in the future, IKEA is so inexpensive for a lot of these places that we'll buy. Now we'll just do IKEA, we'll do Amazon, we'll do StructTube and Wayfair.
Right.
Those are the big 4 that we'll use, and we'll just buy everything pretty much brand new.
Right.
Unless there's something that we can buy for an awesome discount. Like we actually bought a hot tub on Facebook Marketplace last year. It was a $5,000, pretty much secondhand hot tub that we got for $500. So like you can't pass up those opportunities for the more expensive items.
Right.
But most of the time now we'll buy brand new because it's just more streamlined. It's easier.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great system. And sorry, did we talk about cost? No, I don't think we. What do you expect?
So again, the first one we ended up being really frugal, and we I think it was like 8,000 or 9,000 we ended up spending.
Yep.
Now in the future, like pretty much like we're at 10,000 to 15,000 for a 1 to 3 bed.
Okay.
And so for a 1 to 3 bed, we're at 10,000 to 15,000, and that's all brand new. That includes everything from what you need in the kitchen to the living room to obviously the bedrooms. Replenishables for usually a few months out. You want to have at least a 3-month surplus of your toilet paper, your hand soap, paper towel, stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 10,000 to 15,000 for a 1 to 3 bed.
Okay.
And then obviously if we're doing another 3 beds, it's going to probably go up a bit from there. Like we might be between 20 and saving 25,000 for a 3 to 6 bed.
And you know what I think? A lot of people that get into short-term rental, I think they forget this piece. It seems obvious after you've gotten it, but sometimes you're thinking like, hold on a second, how much is it going to cost me to furnish this place? And that's a big expense if you haven't budgeted for it. Like if you're thinking it's going to be cheap, it's not. Like humans, like they're super needy. Like they need a lot of shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just kind of just take a look at your own house and all the stuff that you have in there. Right?
Yeah, it does definitely add up. And you also realize like just how much needs to be accounted for when you have to put it all into a spreadsheet and upload it into carts and then order those things and then deal with the refunds and replacements or whatever needs to happen. Because obviously things are going to arrive broken when you're ordering 300 to 500 items for an Airbnb. And so it's really important to have a team there and someone that can help out with it. Because just on one Airbnb, I think we probably spent over 10 hours on the phone with Amazon or IKEA, just dealing with refunds or returns or damaged items and goods. And so, yeah, like having someone there that can do that is important. So yeah, definitely recommend having someone to help out if you're doing a short-term rental, like a virtual assistant or someone that can assist, because there's a lot of busy work for sure that has to happen.
What are some of the amenities that you definitely need to have in some of these properties? Let's say more for cottage. Like do you need a washer, dryer? Is that important? Not necessarily, because maybe they're only staying for like a day or two, or do people typically stay for a whole week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, like if you're doing cottage country here in Ontario, I would absolutely, without a doubt, want to make sure that you have a hot tub and a sauna. Okay. It's just going to be those 2 amenities there, and again, these are in addition to your kind of typical furnishings. So those numbers I was giving there are just for the furnishings, not including the hot tub, the sauna, the extra things that you might want to set up, like a volleyball court outside, spike ball, like other fun games. But hot tub and sauna are your 2 main amenities here in Northern Ontario. And the reason why is a lot of the cottages just won't perform well if you don't have good amenities to attract people up there in the wintertime. Why are they going to make a 2 or 3 hour trip from, Ottawa or from Toronto to actually go up there and explore? They want to have things that they don't actually have at home in the city. And so, you might spend again a couple thousand on a hot tub, and then a barrel sauna is going to be 5,000 to 10,000. But it's worth it because we've ran the math and we know just through A/B testing, like some of these cottages, they'd be doing $20,000 to $40,000 less within that range, depending on the situation, every single year, if we didn't have, say, a hot tub and a sauna.
Really?
So it's really worth it. Like, that's just crazy. In the first year, for sure, it pays itself back.
Right.
Sometimes almost twofold, and so it's really worth it. Those are the 2 main ones. We'll also, if we find the right opportunity, get some acreage on the property. That way, we can have hiking trails, so people can go snowshoeing in the summertime or in the wintertime. They can ride bikes there in the summer, which is sweet. We also have a pond on one property, on one property's land there. And so we'll clear it off and we'll actually have signs up that say, be careful, but it's for skating. So people actually go out there and they'll skate in the summer or in the winter. So things like that are awesome. Yeah, I would say volleyball court, that's one of my favorites. Ping pong tables are.
So when you say volleyball court, what do you mean? Like your beach, like kind of like a beach volleyball?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So you're bringing sand in?
Yeah, we'll bring some sand in, and we'll put 4x4s around it as a perimeter to keep the sand in there.
People must love that.
Oh, they love it.
I know when I go on vacation,
Yeah.
that's the first thing I'm looking for is like beach volleyball.
Yeah, no, it's sweet. It definitely, it's totally worth it for a lot of them.
Okay.
And,
So
Yeah.
sauna, hot tub, beach volleyball.
Yep. Ping pong tables.
Yeah.
The whole movie theaters, you just buy a little $350 projector, put it in the basement, and have a nice white wall there, like a drop down projector screen, and you're good to go. And yeah, those are the big ones. Well, actually, on the one property, we have a geodesic dome, which is exciting. So a geodesic dome, it's kind of like an auxiliary dwelling unit is essentially what it is, but you can buy them for $5,000 to $10,000. We'll buy like a 100 square foot geodome and just put a queen bed in it. And we'll have, an electrical cord that goes out there to supply like heat to the property or to the geodome with some lighting. And it's awesome because it's all about heads on beds when you're buying an Airbnb, because people get to split the cost of their stay. And so a geodome is cool. It's unique. And a lot of them actually have like kind of like a window right on the ceiling, so you can look at the stars in the evening because you're up north. Yeah. And so you actually don't have as much light pollution. You can see the stars, and it's a great time. Awesome. It's exciting. People love it.
So hold on. So and what is it? Open up the top, or is it like clear so they can see the stars from inside?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's clear on the top. Yeah. And then there is a little curtain that you can pull over in case you don't want to wake up in the morning with the sunrise. Yeah. But yeah, that one works really well. Actually, one property we bought has a pool in it. So that one's actually doing the best right now, the one with the pool, and people love it. Like we actually need to install a heater in it because there's been so many requests on Airbnb for people asking, hey, when's the pool open? Do you guys have a heater? The amount of times we've been asked through Messenger or Airbnb there around, does your pool have a heater, is crazy. And so we know like there's a demand. And that's the other thing that you're going to realize when you get the property up and running is you'll be able to suss out like what amenities are hot or what's needed when guests are asking for the same thing over and over again.
They keep asking,
if they ask, does it have olive oil? Do you have salt and pepper? And you don't have it, like that's a turn down, So make sure that you go and you spend a little bit of money on olive oil, your salt and pepper, like whatever else they might need. Right. Within reason, of course, but if the same request comes up multiple times, it might be worth the investment.
Now, has this market shift impacted your business out in cottage country? Have you seen a decrease in people like having to bring the prices down, or have you been okay just because of the uniqueness that you have in some of your properties?
Yeah, I think the tide's lowering in a sense for everyone in the short-term rental space, and we're kind of seeing what's more normal, the numbers that we had been seeing before COVID. And so kind of the year 2018 or 2019 numbers is what we're seeing right now for 2023. And, the 2021, obviously 2022 was just an abnormality. It was just very strange. Like the numbers, it was a huge spike. And so we were buying based off 2018 and 2019 numbers and expecting that. So when we saw this really unique thing, which was 2021, 2022 for Airbnb numbers, it was just, it was a huge bonus. But we didn't expect that moving forward. And so I think just buying based on the data and what the data looks like long-term is really important. And so we're not seeing anything super abnormal with the data here for 2023. It's very similar to what we saw pre-COVID. COVID numbers were just crazy because everyone was flocking away and doing the kind of like the vacations there in Northern Ontario and stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, people had money saved up to go away somewhere and they couldn't. And so they're like, well, look, if I can't leave the country, well, then I'm going to go up to cottage country, right? And I think that's probably what drove the price up. And then also, too, then people were up there for like a week and they're like, oh, I want to live here now. Not realizing how different and unique it is up there as well, too. You got to deal with septics and you got to deal with wells, and it's a whole different lifestyle, right? So
yeah, really
but I mean, you know what? That's good though, at least. So you started at a really good time. To be able to, when you started in 2018 or 2019, to say, oh, these are normal numbers. And then all of a sudden, hold on a second, this is really abnormal. Because now you see this crazy spike. You're like, oh, okay, they're kind of back to normal now. Which is, I think, the first time I've really kind of heard that from somebody saying, we're normal. This is what we saw the last 2 years was abnormal. Like, give yourself shake your head a little bit here. Just give yourself a head check.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all perspective, right? Like, I spoke to one of my mentors here a few weeks ago who's been investing for just decades. And he had said when he was investing back in the 80s, I think interest rates were like something like 11%. Mm-hmm. And he for us right now, we're like, well, that's crazy. 11% interest is nuts. Mm-hmm. And he said back then, that was the heyday. He was so excited to invest at 11% because prior to that, they were seeing interest rates at like 18%.
19, yeah.
19%. And so it's all perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we saw like 1.5% interest, now 4% or 5 or 6%, it's just crazy high. It's, it's all perspective. So
it is perspective for sure. And listen, and here's the thing right now. So if we're to take a pulse of what's happening in the market, you're seeing a lot more home buyers out there as opposed to investors. And the way that I look at it right now is like, this is a great time for investors. Like this is where if you can make properties work at this number, then you've got yourself a good deal, compared to like where it was at 1.5%, and I think people, and here's the other interesting thing too, is like people are like, man, I can't wait till it goes back down to 1.5. Well, look, man, you might be waiting for a very long time. Like I don't have no crystal ball, but if that's what you're waiting on, well, then good luck. Like you should be able to make deals work in any market. You got to run your numbers, just be sophisticated and go out there and run your numbers properly.
Yeah. No, this is a great conversation because it's kind of like the glass is half full conversation where it's either half full or half empty, and I think it's again that perspective thing. But when the interest rates were low, the same people that were complaining that purchase prices were so high are now the same people that are saying, well, I'm not buying right now. It's just not the right time because, well, interest rates are so high. But, on the flip side, it's like when interest rates are high, purchase prices are lower. And when, interest rates are low, then purchase prices are higher. So it's, as long as you're using, like you said, kind of those fundamentals that work in up markets, down markets, sideways markets, then you're good. And so I think that's important, right? If we wouldn't have bought during COVID, we would have lost out on a huge opportunity to build the portfolio that we had built. And we think the same thing now. It's just making sure that everything that you're doing works in all the different scenarios. So when we're running our analysis, we'll bump up the interest rates a few percent.
Yeah.
To make sure that, hey, if the interest rates do go up, we're okay if we stay in a variable rate mortgage, right?
Yeah, 100%. And look, man, those people they're always going to make excuses in any market. I remember this one quote that I heard is from Jim Rohn, and it's probably one of my favorite ones, where he said that it's not that it's too expensive. I say this to my kids all the time. It's that you can't afford it. So instead of now shifting the blame and saying, inflation is high. Yeah, I get all that. Or this is too expensive. Just like put the blame on you. Like, oh, I can't afford it. Because there's other people out there that can afford it. And then how can they afford it? What are they doing? And then just go out there and figure out how to afford it and stop complaining.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And it's always how can I afford it, not I can't afford it. And I think that's the shift. So, and I think Jim Rohn, he also has an awesome quote just around like your income will never surpass your personal development level. And so I've always been a big believer in like investing in myself for my knowledge, my education, and making sure that I'm kind of well-rounded in those other aspects. So that will always allow us to run a better business and be a better leader and stuff. So
100%. Yeah. Just kind of going back into the short-term maintenance and also cleaners. How do you kind of deal with that? Is maintenance a big issue? Do you find that with the short-term rentals, you have a lot more repairs and upkeeps to the property?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like there's just no way that we couldn't have it that way with a long-term rental guest or tenant, I should say. If we do a good job screening and putting them in place and they're resourceful, they might message us or ask for something once a year. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty hands-off. And there's just one person there. So they keep good care of the place. But when we have a short-term rental, there could be 100 plus guests in and out of the property. So natural just wear and tear happens as the guests are there. So what we'll do is we'll make sure to budget that in to the analysis when we're looking to buy the property. And usually for maintenance, for a long-term rental, we'll do like a 5% of gross rev per year, setting aside for maintenance and repairs.
Yep.
For a short-term rental, we'll do up to 10%.
Okay.
And it's just because we know that it's going to happen. So as long as, again, it's in the spreadsheet, then we're all good.
Yep.
Then it's just a matter of finding a really, really good boots on the ground person that can do your general maintenance and meet new contractors that might be needed that have tickets like for plumbing, electrical, stuff like that. But yeah, like maintenance is an ongoing thing for the short-term rentals. But even with furnishings, like just furnishings will get broken. Airbnb actually is an awesome thing though with something called air cover. It's essentially their liability now. So it makes getting money back for damaged items from the property really, really easy. I believe it's up to $2 million. So we've had, coaches broken and other other things broken, not regularly, but once in a while. And we just file it with Airbnb, and Airbnb just gives us the money for it. So.
What breaks a lot? Like, what about like wine glasses? Do you put wine glasses, or do you plastic wine now, or glasses? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We do have glass everything.
Okay.
We have pretty robust glassware. Like we do have some wine glasses. Those will break once in a while. That's when we're gonna have extra wine glasses. But the hot tub, those can be a pain in the butt, and so it's a love-hate, because they do generate awesome revenue and the guests love it. But to keep those clean, it's like where they're just so regularly used, like we have to clean it out like once every 2 months for sure, like where we empty it and then refill it, which is actually quite a bit. And so
I don't realize how much water's in that thing, right?
Yeah. I would say that's the big one. What else? The one property is actually just run on electricity, so the breaker panels are always switched off, so we have to kind of have someone to go in and look at that. Like I think last year we had 3 electricians to go up and look at the electrical panel. But what else? I think that's it. Like glassware. Yeah. Glassware is the big one.
Wine. You got wine spills.
Yeah. A couple wine spills. Like we'll go through probably 3 or 4 linens per year, sets of linen. So like that'll be like a whole bed sheet. Or something we'll have to throw out.
So somebody spills a whole bottle of wine or glass of wine on the bed.
Yeah, it happens. Especially when like people are going inside and they're bringing in mud, and then they're jumping in the bed or something. There's mud on the linens. But there's really not been that much, which is awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What about cleaners? You got your cleaners. They go in right afterwards. Are they usually pretty good? It's gonna be difficult, I guess, finding a good cleaner, or is it pretty easy?
Yeah, this is one challenge that we've had that I believe we've solved pretty well. At the beginning, we had a main focus on like finding meticulous cleaners that were, just up to our standard when it came to the detail orientation for the cleaning. And so we were very, very like strict on like everything here needs to be cleaned. We need to get up to like the 90th percentile or 95th percentile for like cleanliness. And so we realized that's not necessarily the most important thing, but more important than that, it's actually just reliability, that they're going to show up. Because if we have a cleaner that's able to do a 95+% cleaning job, but they are a one-man show, or they kind of leave us high and dry even once a month, that's a huge issue. So what we have is like a cleaning team that actually have a few individuals under the company. And so if one person gets sick or someone just can't make it, something happens in their life, they have someone else on the team that can actually go in. And so it was kind of finding like a cleaning team that wasn't super expensive and charging a lot, because they had just a bunch of operating costs and expenses because their business is so big. But it was finding a cleaning team that just had like 2 or 3 people under them. And if one person couldn't make it in, then the other person could. And we were less strict then on like the detail orientation of the cleaning. Like we were okay with like a 70 or 80% clean. Everything didn't have to be completely spotless. It was going to be okay. Like you don't go in a hotel and take out a magnifying glass and start inspecting it. Right. That's kind of what we were doing. We were being very strict with it. And we just realized that just wasn't, that was like micromanaging. It was just, just didn't work. But finding reliable people is the biggest challenge.
Right.
You definitely want to talk to as many cleaners as you possibly can in your entire city that you're looking to buy in, and vet them and screen them and have at least 2, if not even 3 different companies at the ready in case one can't make it. At the beginning, actually what we'll do is we'll test out a few. If it's a very tight kind of interviewing process and we have like 2 or 3 competitors, we'll actually have each of them tested out within the first month of operation to just see who does the best job, who's the most reliable. And then through that kind of month test, then we'll be able to pick the best one and stay with them.
So after somebody's booked, like, are you then booking the cleaner right away? So somebody books from Monday to Friday, and you're leaving Friday morning. Do you book that cleaner Friday morning? Say, hey, I need you to go there for 12 o'clock?
Yeah. So what we actually have is this is where software just comes into place, and it's so easy, because you could text the cleaning team every single turnover that happens and say, you need to go in and clean today. And then let them know every single time that a new guest is about to check in. You could do that. And that's a lot of back and forth. And that can be totally eliminated with an awesome channel management software. The one that we recommend is HostAway. And so HostAway essentially will allow you to have the schedule right there for the cleaners and the maintenance team. And so if we're listing on multiple different platforms like VRBO Airbnb. HostAway just allows us to have everything in one place. So it takes the schedules from VRBO and Airbnb, and so they don't overbook or overlap with their bookings. And the cleaning team actually knows like when the checkouts are happening and when the check-ins are happening. And if there is a last minute booking, like 12 hours or less, and the place just for whatever reason isn't clean, we'll call the cleaner and have them go in. That rarely happens. A lot of the time the cleaner has a lot of notice because they can just pierce the veil behind the scenes and look at the calendar, look at the schedule there, and know when the turnovers are happening.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's when you've got that many moving pieces, like you really got to get that automation and systems and processes in place, right? Because you could be sitting there on the phone texting all day long, emails back and forth, right? And so it sounds like you really got a good system in place. What about kind of going back to maintenance? What about emergencies? How often do emergencies come up? Where it's just like, hey, there's no internet. Or, that's probably an emergency for a lot of people, or there's no hydro or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, it's funny. If internet goes down now, I think that's a bigger issue than if the fridge stops working. So like we don't usually have that many emergencies, but if they ever do happen, the portfolio manager has the phone calls coming in, and then if she can't solve that problem, then she'll call myself. But yeah, I think I've only had maybe one or two things in the last year that actually came up as like emergencies that she wasn't able to solve. But that's the idea, is that the guests actually have the phone number right on the Airbnb or VRBO platform for the portfolio manager, and so they can call if needed, and then get someone to speak to. We do have a guest communication person on from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mm-hmm. In the off hours, though, they do have that, again, the portfolio manager's phone number to call them. But it's rare that something will happen after hours.
Sorry, so you have a guest
communication person. So
for all your properties?
For all the properties, it's one person that just does them all.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of back and forth. With my long-term rentals, the tenants might have a question once every couple months or something, or they might reach out once in a while. It's very rare that they will. And for my short-term rentals, there's multiple messages per guest that's staying there. And so if they're there for 3 days, we might have a dozen messages that need to go back and forth. We do have automation set up on the HostAway platform because they also do guest automation communication there. But for the more unique responses or inquiries, like we actually have to have a human being there to communicate with them. And so that's the guest communication person that we
right. Hire. I guess it could just be as simple as like, hey, where's the opener?
That's it.
Right. Hey, where's this? Hey, where's that? And that's just one cottage that could be 30 messages depending on the personality type, right? But you just can't find anything.
Yeah. And then one thing that we'll do is if the same message or question comes up multiple times that we can answer, we'll actually put it into our guidebook, or guest book is what we call it. And so the guest book, I know the old way of doing it is you actually have a printed out kind of like a binder that you have at the property. But a lot of the questions actually come up prior to their arrival. And so we'll actually, as soon as they check in or as soon as they book with us, we'll send them our digital guidebook or guest book. And so the one that we use there is called Host Fully. And so Host Fully has us be able to have an FAQ and the directions to the property, the like restaurants, dining places nearby, activities nearby, anything that you can think of is usually answered in that guidebook. So if the guest communication person doesn't know, they can usually refer to that guidebook or the guest book there. Or if the guests have a question, usually the guest communication person just defers it to the guest book.
Who's creating that though? Like who's saying, okay, here's the restaurants, here's gas station, here's like, you know what I mean? Who puts it all together? Are you guys doing that?
So the portfolio manager, the person that we'll hire, like you can find all of this online. Almost anything nowadays can be found through a phone call or through the internet. And so our portfolio managers are in Eastern Europe. And so they'll go and they'll find all these places. And we just go off Google reviews. That's all it is. And then we'll put it right into the guidebook. And then the guest communication person has all the answers there. So it's like kind of the property's information is just right there in that guidebook.
Got it. So you say so it's almost like a template. Like, hey, make sure you put some restaurants in there. Make sure you put some grocery stores in there. Make sure you put some liquor stores and beer stores in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What about insurance for these short-term rentals? How difficult is that?
Yeah, I think we've ran into two main issues with insurance, and we've gotten through it. It hasn't been that big of a challenge, but the first is with the cottages, we have fireplaces in some of them. And we haven't been able to find an insurance company that's actually able to insure us with an operating fireplace in an Airbnb, as you can imagine. So
really? That's interesting.
So we actually have to disconnect the fireplace. It's very simple, but we just disconnect it and then we're good to go with insurance.
Right.
It's been that, and then.
So you don't have any fireplaces that are operational right now then in any of your
No,
cottages?
we just do either electric baseboards, heat pumps, that sort of thing, or we'll or at the one cottage we do propane. Propane gets delivered, and then and then out in the East Coast we have oil. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's probably a better thing anyways, man. With cottage, drinking.
That's it. Yeah. You can imagine.
Open fire inside the house.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, And then coals would come out and it wouldn't be good. So we that's been the only issue for insurance. I think just other than that, we'll be able to use insurance to buy the property, and it's been working well. The banks can sometimes be a little hesitant on that. That can be one kicker is for financing.
Yeah.
The banks aren't usually keen on financing for short-term rentals, but when you say it's your secondary residence or a vacation home or something of that nature, works out well. Then you just have to make sure that your insurance works for that. But there's a bunch of different insurance companies. HMS Insurance is the one that I'll use with Brent McLaughlin, and he's fantastic. He can work with us on a bunch of different options for insurance with Airbnb.
Now, with everything happening in the market right now, are you going to continue to buy cottages? Do you still think there's some good opportunities out there? Use an AirDNA as obviously your go-to to analyze what's happening in the market. Do you still think there's some good opportunities out there?
Absolutely. I think there's lots of awesome opportunity with short-term rentals, and we're doubling down on it for sure. And then looking at the pivots into the plan B and the plan C, making sure the numbers still make sense for the medium and the long term. But Airbnbs just do so well, like short-term rentals do so well. And so we're going after the markets where the provinces are putting more money into tourism. And so Nova Scotia is actually one of those provinces right now that we have our eyes on. The HRM actually just licensed short-term rentals in Halifax and Dartmouth. So we're looking at the outskirts. But even looking at doing like a boutique hotel or a motel, I actually got inspired by a Netflix series. It was called Motel Makeovers. And there's these two girls that they actually got picked up by Vogue magazine, and they have a Netflix series now. And they bought like this bed bug infested kind of like motel that was rented for $50 a night, renovated it, and now it's getting like $350 to $450 per night. And it was just cosmetic. They were super frugal in their design, but it looks awesome, and it just crushes it. They did an overhaul on the new website because it was kind of like this mom and pop outdated website, and nothing was like modernized at all. So they came in, redid the infrastructure online, rebranded it, and they launched it. It's called the June Motel, and it does really, really well.
Where is this, in Canada or the U.S.?
That's actually in Prince Edward County. So the first one was in Prince Edward County. I believe Prince Edward County had licensed short-term rentals just prior to. And so you can still operate short-term rentals, though, in a commercial zoning. And so they took advantage of that opportunity. And so same idea with like a place like the HRM in Halifax and Dartmouth. Where they licensed it, there's going to be a lot of people that just can't operate their short-term rentals. But with the province still funneling a lot of money into tourism, these people that are coming into the province need a place to stay. And so if you can actually get your hands on a good short-term rental, which would be for us in a commercial zoning area, then you're able to operate and really make the most of it. So
is that what you're looking to do next?
That's what we're looking to do next. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been really exciting. It's been
so
difficult to learn, as you can imagine. There's not many YouTube videos on the topic.
So are you looking at, have you found a few, like, are you hotels, motels that you're looking at right now that just kind of just run down and poorly operated?
It's like 10 to 40 to 50, 10 to 40 rooms is kind of the range that we've been eyeballing. A boutique hotel by definition is under 100 rooms. And so we're looking at 10 to 40 right now. That kind of tends to be the sweet spot for what we're looking at. And we want to be able to have a front desk concierge or a little cafe in there, or a cocktail bar, maybe even a restaurant. And so that's what we're looking to do. And there's been quite a few opportunities, many of which are off market. You can't really find them on the MLS easily. Right. But finding realtors that actually have those connections is important. Obviously, like yourself, Gary.
Right.
I'm sure you'd have a few up your sleeve. But that's been sweet.
That's interesting. Okay. And have you found anything that's interesting? You have to give us location.
Not yet. No,
Okay.
we've been hunting now for about 6 months. A lot of it's like preliminary research and understanding like the analysis, of it, you know, how that works, and then looking at the systems. Like, do we have the cleaning team internal, like in-house, or do we do it external and have a contractor team come in and do it?
Right.
Same idea with the maintenance, like, you know.
Yeah. Even like the call center and the operating system that they're using to book all these, like there's probably a lot of different moving pieces to it, right?
There, yeah. And I think it's just been a slow evolution from the single family short-term rentals into this, because if we didn't do that, I don't think we could actually take on this type of project. It'd be just so overwhelming. I don't think the learning curve would be very, very extreme. But now with our base knowledge with single families, we're evolving and scaling up into boutique hotels and motels, and looking to do that. And now the question becomes, do we adopt a brand name like the Ace Hotel, or obviously that's more of like a hotel, not a boutique hotel, but like something like the Drake Hotel. And there's a bunch of other names that we could kind of lean on for their systems and their branding, or do we create our own brand? So we're kind of at that fork in the road right now. And
yeah, that's interesting.
There's lots of pros and cons.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially you're going from, the greenhouses to the Red Hotel, but you're just doing it in a different space, right?
In a different space,
in the hotel space.
Yeah, here in Ontario, we just didn't want to really scale with the long-term or the LTB being the way that it is. And so we just made that decision through the experiences that we had to be able to go and do this. But that's what we're doing.
That might be interesting.
Yeah. No.
So I mean, you'd be looking for investors, obviously, right?
We would. Yeah. Definitely looking for investors and raising some capital for that. And it's going to be the same idea. We're going to take that JV structure and then upgrade it into the general partner, limited partner structure. And so that's a whole other learning curve too, for being able to finance and do that deal. But yeah, that's what we're looking to do, is essentially do the same thing that we did on the micro and just do it more on the macro now,
right?
To blow it up.
Yeah. Listen, that's very cool, very exciting. That's usually what I kind of ask at the end, is like, hey, so what are you doing next? But you've already, you beat me to the punch. But I think it's exciting. I think it makes a lot of sense. And watching your journey, I think you can do it. You will do it, without a doubt.
Yeah, we're determined. And then the other thing is there's just no rush. Like we're being patient. Right. I found like one thing that I experienced when I was doing my multifamily long-term rental investing was I was very, almost in a way, ego driven. I was like competing with other investors that I knew and wanting to just do more and looking at the numbers. How many units do I have? How many units do I have? And so kind of over that now, looking at just going slow and doing it for ourselves, doing it for our family. And so the why has changed. And so that was the other learning curve that I had, was like detaching from that and doing it for our family. And it just, patience is going to be so important for this project. And so we're slowing down our buying of singles and multis and looking at just going after one big project and doing it super, super well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Riley, listen, I've enjoyed this conversation with you. I really have. It's been good learning more about you, your journey. I think you're doing some incredible things. What would you say is one thing that you've learned in this pursuit of what you've been building that's really helped change your life and get you to where you are, and to kind of maybe even give you some guidance and footing to where you're going?
Yeah, I'm still pretty young in comparison to maybe quite a few investors that I get into rooms with. And I definitely have not figured this out by myself. Like, this has been an aggregation of a bunch of mentors and coaches and people that I'm kind of in a way standing on the shoulders of giants. And so I know making the decision to hire coaches to accelerate the growth, I think I still would end up being where I am today, but I'd probably be here in 10 or 20 years from now had I have not decided to invest into the accelerated path that I did, which is essentially just mentors and coaches. And so that was the number one thing that's led to where I am today. It's just finding the right people that you like and trust and that have done it. And so if you can find those people and they've done exactly what you want to do and they've done it the way that you want to, then I would say work with them.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think that's so important. Somebody asked me today and I said, listen, man, if you want to be successful, you just become obsessed. Number one, become obsessed. Number two, get some coaches and mentors in your corner. Start hanging out with the people that are where you want to be. It's as simple as that. You don't have to worry about the technical aspect. That stuff will come later, but it's the mindset. It's believing in yourself. It's learning what they've done well and the mistakes that they've also made and learning from that as well too, right? So listen, if anyone wants to learn more about Riley, maybe even partner with you, get some cottages with you, get into the hotel business with you, anything else that you plan on doing, how do they do that? Yeah,
just social media. You can find me at Riley Oickle Investor on Facebook and on Instagram. I have a website too, so just RileyOickle.com.
Beautiful. Riley, I appreciate your time. I think we should do this again. And thanks for being in here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
All right, brother.